What's up, Spartans? Today, Angie and I are going to talk about some new information or some information that I've been reading in a recent book. The book is called Eat Smarter. It's by a guy named Sean something, can't remember the name. But we're going to talk a little bit about how that plays into how we teach our clients the Spartan lifestyle form of nutrition. So in this particular portion of the book, which also started off from a podcast, he's talking about calories. I mean, he's talking about the invention of calories. So he's talking about this scientist that invented calories that wanted to be able to, and it was actually by engineers. So it came from engineering. It was a form of how can we find how much energy it takes to melt something, right? Some of those types of things, those kilojoules types of things. Then they applied it to food. So when they applied it to food, they gave certain foods, how hard is it to digest, right? So yes, it is the energy that it gives you, but it's essentially like a banana. If it's 40 calories, it's 40 units of energy to digest that, okay? So in modern day society, what happens to us all the time is we're always about calories in versus calories out.
Right.
But one of the things that we found in doing this for 18 years now and now online is it's not simply about calories in versus calories out. Because truthfully, if you can tell me that you can eat a donut and 1,200 calories of donuts, that you're gonna be in the same shape of somebody that eats 1,200 calories of a balanced whole foods, you're freaking kidding me, right? Right? You're gonna be soft, you're gonna be weak as hell, you're gonna have all sorts of problems like that. So in this podcast, it got me thinking about how we try to teach our clients. Yes, we track our food, yes, we look at calories, but it's more of an awareness thing, right? We wanna teach them awareness. But what is rule number one when we talk about changing your health and food?
Eat whole foods.
Eat whole foods,
Yep.
right? So eating whole foods makes the biggest difference. And what we find is we set people at a calorie goal and most of them will be like, oh, that's way too many calories. Or that's way too few calories is also another one with the guys. And once they start eating whole foods, they have no problem. And then they're like, I can't eat enough salads. I can't eat enough food, right? But to go into this, what he talked about is it's not the calories that the body wants, it's the nutrients, which is another topic that we've talked about before, right? Is making sure that you have enough nutrients. So as I kind of share that information with you, what are some thoughts that come to your mind based around some of that and kind of our normal society?
Sure. And so, I mean, first off, yes, whole foods. And the fact that it's better for your body, if you're eating a lot of processed foods, your body starts to crave those processed foods. And it's faster to process processed foods, which is why you don't stay full.
And real quick on that, to point on that, he said it's not that your body necessarily craves those, it's that it has no nutrients, so it's never satisfied. So even though there's calories there, there's none of the nutrients. Sorry.
Correct. Which gets to your second point about the nutrients and mixing up the amount of nutrients that you're eating and not constantly varying, but not eating the exact same thing every single day, just because, number one, it becomes boring. Number two, it doesn't become as satisfying, so you start thinking about other things that you want to eat.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the next point that he made as well, is he said, you got people in modern day society, right? We got fast food, we got, I'm going to eat this power bar or whatever the diet crap that it is, but it still has none of the nutrients, right? You can eat a power bar or a protein bar, and it has protein, but that is not the same protein by any scientific way of thinking about it as a chicken breast, as a steak, And he goes into more of that type of stuff. We're not going to talk about that right now. We just want to talk about some of these really easy basics. But also what he says is you can go to the other side, right? You can be the person that all you eat is chicken, broccoli, and rice. Yeah. And there, in that same aspect, you may start to get really lean, but you may not be healthy because you're still missing those nutrients.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. And again, varying things. While all three of those things are good, broccoli, chicken, and rice, you're missing out to your point, right? First thing I'm thinking of is not enough fat. So if you incorporated salmon instead of chicken periodically, or a steak instead of chicken periodically, you'd be getting a little bit more of that fat in your diet. It would be, again, just kind of changing things up in the way that your body is absorbing the nutrients that you're getting. Right.
And the protein from fish, we know this, and you guys all out there know this, the protein from fish is different than that from chicken, right? We always talk about you gotta eat fish, you gotta eat salmons, because it has different fats.
Yeah.
And they're in the same aspect, fats from vegetables is much different in its profile than fats from fish. Mm-hmm. So those things gotta be combined as well. we've seen a number of cases in which clients get into a habit of eating the same things and may have hitting roadblocks. And I think this is a huge mind or an awakening for us to share with them. But think about our diet. So what are some ways in which we vary our things up throughout the day? And if we get a ton of different nutrients, and it does take some experimenting, but you're on a lifestyle change, right? You're ready to make some changes. So the same thing that you've been doing isn't working for you. So kick that shit to the curb. But how do we look at some of the variety that we put into our meals?
So we talk a lot about eating whole foods. Obviously, we started with that. We also talk about how do you make it simple. And so if you just think about having a starch or a carb of some sort, I'll just take dinner, for example, a healthy amount of vegetables and a healthy protein serving. And so that constantly changes for us. So throughout the course of a week, it doesn't make it hard. It's still easy to plan. We're always going to have at least beef once or twice. We're always going to have seafood probably at least once. We're probably always going to have pork at least once. And then, whatever else we decide to sprinkle in there. Same with the vegetables. Constantly changing the vegetables. And right now it's winter. So we're not eating as much grilled vegetables as what I do in the summer. Yeah. But we're eating things more like, fresh green beans and Brussels sprouts and things that we can roast in the oven. And so we're changing things up that way. And then from a starch standpoint, we vary that sometimes with rice or polenta, most of the time between red potatoes, sweet potatoes, just kind of changing it up. So each one of those, while they're all a starch, have way different nutrients.
Unless we have Thai food, then I'm eating all the rice.
Yeah.
All the rice. And so that is a perfect point. And one thing that you said there that made me think of where I want to go to next is we're in winter now. So the foods are different, right? And there's a lot of different stuff out there. We don't believe in any certain tag word. Well, we call it the Spartan lifestyle because we believe that it's whole foods, right? We believe it's kind of getting back to instinct. Like one of the things that I talk about a lot and Angie and I have talked about is she's logical, I'm instinctual. And what we feel is a lot of people have gotten too logical in their food, right? They're like, oh, this has this many calories, this has this many calories, this is exactly the same. Does your instinct really tell you that? Like, no, listen to your instinct. So another thing that he talked about is the hunter-gatherer, right? Okay. And he talked about the hunter-gatherer. And paleos out there, if you want to think about the hunter-gatherer, keto people, think about this out there. The hunter-gatherer, which we really are, wasn't picky on what they ate. They ate what they could get their hands on, right? So they weren't worried about, let me go find a slab of beef and make sure that it has a good amount of fat. No, like if they found a squirrel that was lean as hell, they were eating that shit. Like they were eating that protein. Same thing when it came to wintertime, like I'm looking out the window right now, like you can see what it looks like. But they were grabbing whatever root vegetables that they had stored, stuff like that. And that's what kept them lean. They never thought about a calorie, but we didn't have the obesity problem. Right. So when we think about that, that's another way that you can think about keeping that variety. Yeah. What are some of the ways, and the one way that we teach for our midday that helps people with a ton of variety? Salads.
Yeah.
They stink, but you have to do it. It's much healthier. From your point of view, looking at the way that my diet has changed in probably the last 4 years and what you were just talking about, tell them what that diet, based on this information we shared, could make a huge difference.
Right. And so before, especially when we had the gym open, a lot of your diet was pretty heavy in beef and sweet potatoes. And for lunch, you would have chuck roast and sweet potatoes. At dinner, you would have steak and red potatoes. And we felt like, wow, we're really kind of doing all the right things. But now that we've kind of changed that around a little bit, number one, you're not as active as you were when you were at the gym. Don't need quite as many calories because you're not walking 10 miles a day inside of that gym. And so we switched that to being salads and then not as much beef on a daily basis. And so it's made a huge difference just in how, you're much more lean than what you were then. I think that, I feel like your skin looks better, like you're not as gray. And I think it's because of all the different nutrients, the spinach and everything that you're getting in that salad. And so, and I think you have found it sometimes, and I don't know if it's just because you're sick of salads, but sometimes you're like, I don't know that I can eat any more of this salad because I'm full. Like my jaws hurt from chewing.
Yes, and that's another thing about the hunter-gatherer, right? There used to be food that wasn't as easy to palate, right? Think about a pint of ice cream. I can house a pint of ice cream in like 10 seconds. which is like 1,400 calories. Do it once a week. But a salad, can't eat it down. But go ahead.
No, I think it's been transformational for you. I know for me, I've always been a salad eater, and I eat salads 7 days a week. And if we happen to go, I don't know, have a family gathering or something where I don't get my salad that day, like by the next day, I'm craving it because my body is wanting the nutrients I get from the salads that we make. So it's been a huge difference.
Been a huge difference. Even though they're not fun all the time, but we're adults. We got to do shit that we don't like to do, like pay taxes, you know what I mean? So the last point that I want to leave these everybody with, this Spartans with, and don't think about all the fad diets where you're eliminating certain stuff, or not doing a ton of supplementation, doing a ton of human-made products. There's actually a part that he talks about coffee and how it's actually beneficial if it's real coffee, but we'll talk about that another time. But the other topic that he talked about and what he said is, what you eat is who you are. So if you're eating crap, if you're eating all that processed food, you're going to show that, right? And you're showing that lack of diversity. But if you are eating a ton of different nutrients and a ton of good food, your body uses those nutrients to build your skin, to build your hair, to build your muscles, your libido, your hormones, all that stuff is based on those nutrients. So when you pigeonhole yourself into one line of good nutrients or a whole bunch of calories that don't have anything for nutrients, that's what you're going to look like, right? Yep. And if we talk about the superficialness of society, that's what a majority of us talk about or think about, is we think more about what do I look like, how does somebody perceive me, or what percentage body fat, not necessarily the health. So wrap it all into a big nice bow. They go hand in hand. Yeah. They go hand in hand. So anything else that you want to share, Ange?
No, I guess the only thing, again, going back to where we started, eat whole foods, eat real food. It's much better for you. It's cheaper in the long run. You're going to feel better. It's going to taste a whole lot better, especially once you detox yourself from the garbage.
You're going to learn to cook. You're going to reconnect with your instinct. Your brain's going to work so much better. There's so much that we could go on into how you're going to become a true high-performance functioning human being rather than chasing calories, right? Versus calories in versus calories out. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Have a great time. If you want to know more and you want to see her more do her cooking thing and learn how to cook, because you're going to have to learn how to cook. You're going to have to learn how to try different things. Check out our YouTube page. Follow us on Facebook. Leave us a comment. If you have any questions, comments, let us know.
All right.
Peace.